Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Davy Au, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Kim Barry, the Vice President of Community Services for ALS Canada. ALS Canada was founded in 1977 and is a registered charity whose work is powered by generous donors who share their vision of a world free of ALS. Founded in and informed by the ALS community, they bridge information, programs, research, and services to people affected by this devastating disease. Together, they are working toward a world free of ALS through research, advocacy, and community services. Thanks for joining us today, Kim.
Thanks, Davey. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. It's my pleasure. And to that end, to begin, for our listeners who are joining us for the first time, or for anyone who's been a long-term listener, why don't you start off by giving us a little bit more insight about you and say what inspired you to work with ALS Canada and with individuals with disabilities.
Sure, no problem. So I've been with ALS Canada for 12 years. I think when you start working with the ALS community, you become very passionate. So my background is social work. I actually came from working with people with intellectual disabilities for a very long time. So this was a transition for me. But I'm so happy to be part of this community. I know that every day we're able to make a difference for those people who are living with ALS and those who support someone living with ALS. So I'm really fortunate to work with a great group of people who really are caring about our community.
And that's absolutely amazing to know that that passion is there and that you've grown to have that passion in many ways as well. So I definitely appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. So thank you for what you do. And thank you for that passion as well.
Thank you for letting us highlight ALS specifically. It's not a really widely recognized disease, so any opportunity we have to be able to inform the community about the work we do and about how ALS affects families, we're really happy to pursue those opportunities.
Of course. And on that note, ALS, you mentioned that it's not a widely recognized disease, but to that end, do you think that you could tell us what exactly ALS is?
Sure. ALS is a progressive motor neuron disease. So when someone is experiencing ALS symptoms, they lose their ability to walk, to talk, to eat, and ultimately to breathe. It's progressive in the fact that we have no idea how long someone will live with ALS, but the average length of time is 80% of people live 2 to 5 years with ALS. And it can take up to 23 months in Ontario to receive an ALS diagnosis. So you can imagine that because it's considered a rare disease, not everyone in the medical professional knows about ALS. And so it's a disease that is diagnosed by a process of elimination, where a lot of other tests are done before they determine that it is ALS. So people don't make an assumption of just going to that specific test or that specific disease to believe that someone has it. And because of, the progressive nature of the disease, everyone progresses differently. So for some people, it is a shorter time to diagnosis. For others, it can take a much longer time frame, depending on the disease and how the symptoms progress for each individual. So for some people, that by the time they get a diagnosis, they've already needed to get adaptive equipment, assistive devices. For other people, they may, have just some slight weakness. It is a lot about who you know and how you get to that person. Ultimately, getting to an ALS clinic, an ALS neurologist for diagnosis is really important in the community.
Absolutely. And to that end, being able to get on the note of being able to get access to those resources and so on and so forth, I saw many of them, if anything, marketed on your website and other sources of that nature when I was doing some digging in preparation for our conversation today. And a lot of those resources and the accoutrement that you also offer as well, that it blew my mind. On the one hand, namely, you have national awards and bursaries. Access to the Canadian ALS Research Network, the ALS Canada Hub, and also the ALS Children and Youth Canada Hub. Do you think that, and I apologize for having named off so many, but do you think that you could give us some insight into what each of these sort of accesses to these sort of resources and networks are?
Sure. So ALS Canada really is about ensuring that people have the resources and support when they need them. And what those look like for each person is very individual. So it's not about just the support we provide to the individual living with ALS, but it is also caregivers, family, extended healthcare professionals, and then, the medical community. So, for example, you mentioned CALS. CALS is a national program that brings clinicians who are supporting people living with ALS from across the country together, and that is managed through the CALS network. That ALS Canada has someone dedicated to ensuring that accurate information is provided to those professionals. They have an avenue to get together and build resources for the community and build resources for each other. A small number of people, I would say we don't have, a ton of people who have young children, but when they do have young children, it is quite impactful to receive an ALS diagnosis. So making sure that particular group of people have the right resources when they need them, how to talk to your child about your ALS diagnosis, what supports they might need, what are the resources to engage them in a way that makes them understand and is age appropriate. There's a lot of things at ALS Canada. We have a bunch of different mission areas. So one being our community services, that's what my team does. Another being our advocacy efforts, so advocating for things like drug access. We're looking to make sure that when there is a treatment for ALS, that it is approved swiftly, that it is, obtainable to individuals because people don't have time to wait. We are one of the only people who invest in ALS research in Canada, so making sure that we continue to explore treatment options, looking at the cause of ALS, looking at the effectiveness of different treatments across the country. So I think and then we have, the other part of our organization is we need to fundraise for that. So we have a great fundraising team and we have a lot of events to engage the community, but it is a little bit about making sure that, ALS is not a siloed disease and neither is our organization. There's collaboration from every area within our organization to make sure that when people need information, they have access to the stuff that is important to them. So we really rely on our community to give us feedback. So we have things like webinars that are bi-monthly. We have information on research sessions. We call them Research 101. We have information on clinical trials. And we're really trying to make sure that when you need to access that, you have it, fact sheets on specific parts of the disease that might be impacting you. Because you can imagine you get an ALS diagnosis, it's already overwhelming. Our team tries to go in and help navigate those questions, but sometimes you're not ready for those answers or you're not ready to engage in those conversations. So for us, we're able to leave resources behind to ensure that, if you're talking about, for example, a feeding tube, that you know what a feeding tube means, how it's going to impact your quality of life. It is not about making decisions for people. It's about giving people information so they can make informed decisions about their own care.
Of course. On the noted decisions as well, I'm sure that, I've also noticed that if one chooses to, that you have, as I mentioned as well, national bursaries and awards. Now, if someone decided to, how can they go about applying for said bursaries or awards?
So currently we have one program through the Kevin Daly bursary. Kevin Daly was a gentleman who was living with ALS who recently passed away, and his family is continuing his legacy to raise money for youth who are in a post-secondary education program. Actually, our bursary announcement will go out on our social media in just over a week. So I think the 13th of May is when our next round of bursary goes out. And that was allowing young people who are primarily going into some field that is ALS related, medical related, have experience in caregiving and giving back to their community. It's allowed them to apply for a bursary anywhere in Canada, so it's not specific to Ontario. And last year we had 4 recipients of the bursary, which was an amazing gift to be able to give. So Kevin's legacy is able to be lived on through this, and making sure that young people have an opportunity to engage in some post-secondary education and just take some of that financial burden off of those individuals and their families. And it's a really lovely way that Kevin's family, and with Kevin was one of the, for the last 2 years of the bursary, was helping us pick the recipients. And with Kevin's passing in the most recent times, his family's continuing to do that. And it's a way for people to honor Kevin and also bring awareness to ALS.
Well, congratulations to the most recent recipients, and honestly, I'm touched. The fact that even though Kevin is gone, his legacy is still carried forward, and that it's absolutely amazing to know that that will never go away.
I think truthfully, Davy, one of the biggest things about the ALS community is that the impact of the disease. Our community is extremely generous. They're able to come back together to help support the organization. They participate in our fundraising events, our walks that are coming up in June. June is also ALS Awareness Month. Third-party events, donors, people who are connected to ALS or have been impacted by the cause are extremely generous to give back with the hopes that either they get the support from the community services, and that's through our equipment program, through our community leads, or they invest, in wanting specifically to invest in research to hopefully ensure that we are a world free of ALS. And so I would say that this is a community that is unlike any other group, just because of impact. And they see the impact and they want to give back. And it doesn't have to be financial. People give back in, significant different ways than just our fundraising efforts. But generally, people are very committed to this cause for a very long time.
Of course. And that's definitely reflected in that passion that you share and the continuation of Kevin's legacy and so many other things. And to that end, with that generosity or that continued dedication in mind, if a person wanted to become a member of ALS Canada, are there any restrictions that would prevent that? Say age, caregivers, anything of that nature?
So for us, a member is actually, so we call them clients. So it has to be an individual who is living with ALS. And they need to be, for us currently, because we support people living in Ontario, they are an Ontario resident. But there is no other requirements. So if you are a family member and you're looking for support and your loved one is not registered with us, you are absolutely welcome to reach out to us at communityservices.at als.ca. That is probably the easiest way, through our website, through our social media. We're happy to support and provide resources to anyone. I think it's really important that no matter where you live, you have access to the same level of information. Like I said, it's about making decisions, right? So for us, I would say if someone is a member and they're registering, they're looking for support. So for us, any age, but you do have to have a confirmed ALS diagnosis. It's really important for us that we're not providing information to someone about ALS, the disease and the progression, unless we are 100% sure that they have a confirmed diagnosis by a neurologist.
Of course. And on the note of your clients, without naming any names, are there any client success stories that you could share with us today?
Here's the biggest thing about ALS. Defining success is a really important thing. ALS is a disease that is 100% terminal. And so for us, I would say that, at this point, we don't have people who necessarily, they don't recover from an ALS diagnosis. That's not what's going to happen to individuals. It is more about quality of life. And I would say, if I was to use an example, I'll share one that I received yesterday from one of our community leads. And she was out visiting a client yesterday, and she had sent a message to myself and the equipment coordinators letting her know that her client had received a new scooter from us, from our program, and this was life-changing for her. It allowed her to take her little puppy out for a walk twice a day, and that was really important to her. She was no longer able to safely take the dog for a walk with a walker, so a scooter gives her that independence. So for us, it's about ensuring that people's quality of life is improved by our programs, making sure that people have the resources, having the support they need when they need it. Success is defined very different for each individual, but for us, it's about making sure that whatever time an individual has left, that if we can do something to help ease that, if it's equipment, if it's information, if it's ensuring they have the right resources and support, I think for us, that's a successful day. We can't outrun the disease, unfortunately. And for us, it really is about making sure that we know that what we've done every single day as an organization is impacting somebody's life.
Absolutely. And possibly too, even on the note of that improved quality of life, you could even, I'm thinking that you could even potentially argue that those who received the Kevin Daly bursary could be considered success stories in and of themselves too. No,
for sure. There's opportunities in terms of advocacy specifically within our organization that are always successes. There's always a win somewhere, and they may not be as noticeable, and some of them take a very long time. So, in terms of our government advocacy efforts and ensuring that that we are moving forward with some of our funding requests or working with the provincial or federal government on things, those things don't just happen overnight. They take investment, they take time. And so they are successes. The fact that, people who receive things like the bursary, they were opportunities for young people to have some relief on their financial burdens. That's significant to the individual, but it's also significant to the family, whether the individual is still living with ALS or they've passed away. It's a way for families to be able to access resources that they maybe necessarily wouldn't have had based on different circumstances.
Of course. And to that end, if a person wanted to become a client, you've given inklings of it throughout our conversation today. If a person wanted to become a client or a volunteer with ALS Canada, what are the sort of respective pathways for both? If I remember correctly, to be at least a client in most respects, you wouldn't need a 100% clear sort of ALS diagnosis from a neurologist, but further to, what are the respective processes like for clients and volunteers?
Sure. So for clients, when someone has a confirmed diagnosis, they're typically done at one of the 5 ALS clinics in Ontario. Those registrations are done typically by the ALS clinics. So they complete a registration form online. It can be done by the individual, but typically it's one of those things that clinics take on the responsibility of sharing the information with our organization, so they're connected to us. So the nurses primarily are the people who fill out those registrations so that we can reach out when that individual has received a diagnosis. Our team is trying to get there within 10 days to make sure that if there's any questions, making sure we know what resources and support they need. And that's a really quick process. Truthfully, the application is done through our website. People fill out some information and we go out and see them. If people are not comfortable with us coming in person, we would do a virtual visit or we would do a phone call. We'll try to meet people wherever they're at. In terms of volunteers, there's, obviously this is National Volunteer Week, which is a big deal as an organization like ours, because volunteers are significantly the heart of what we do within our organization. So they give their time to things like our walk. We have a significant number of volunteers who attend walks. Day of, we have other people in leadership positions. So our board of directors, our advisory councils, we have office volunteers. Anyone who's interested in volunteering can go to the als.ca website, find the volunteer form. If they want to volunteer on more of a regular thing, for example, in the office, we would look at that, because anytime that volunteers give back to us, it helps support our mandate that we don't have to, for example, if we have to send out a mail out to people, we don't have to spend the financial resources on having a staff person do that. That volunteers generously give of their time so that we can put our money to our mission and not to the things that need to be done on the back end of the organization. But in terms of upcoming events, we have our Walks to End ALS starting in June. We have 20 of those across the province. Happy to take volunteers in any of those events. They just need to go online, fill out a volunteer form, let us know where they're interested in, and then someone will reach out to them to set up the information of, how our volunteers work the day of, what the responsibilities are and the expectations. And volunteers, really, this is how we are able to run some of our events. So walks are a big part of what we do as an organization, and it brings our community together. And so volunteers really make those events such a positive experience for everyone. Whether it's them giving out T-shirts at an event or helping set up signs, there's a job and a responsibility for anybody who's willing to be a participant. And for young people, it's a great way to get their volunteer hours. That's still in existence. And so young people are welcome to attend our events as well and give back some of their time.
Well, pay attention to that, everyone, because there are opportunities aplenty as per what Kim is marketing. So thank you for letting us in on that on those amazing opportunities.
Thanks for helping us highlight it. I think it's also important that organizations like yours and the work that you do help bring awareness to us and our events and our organization.
Now, this next question that I have for you, Kim, it's actually my favorite that I love referring to, that I love deferring to in any of these conversations that I have with all of our guests on the show. Now, in your opinion, what is one thing you see happening repeatedly to individuals with disabilities that shouldn't be, and how do we collectively go about stopping it?
I think listening to people's voices. I think sometimes there's a lot of assumptions, especially in our community, where people who lose their ability to speak or lose their ability to walk means that they are not able to make decisions. And I think everyone, healthcare providers, individuals in the community, we all need to slow down and take a breath and realize that the individuals we're supporting, they have a voice that needs to be heard, and it should always be heard. It should be a priority in every organization and all the work that we do to bring that forward. I think for us, there is a lot of assumptions for our community specifically that if you can't speak, you can't communicate, or if you can't do something, that you're not able to express your wishes or your desires or your wants. And sometimes it's finding the right avenue. Not everybody has an option to use a communication device, but you'd be surprised how vocal our community can be for those people who lose their ability to speak. I think for us, there's a lot of assumptions in ALS specifically that it comes with dementia. And so if you can't speak or you can't communicate properly, that you don't understand. And so one of the first things that's always said to individuals is there's no issue with someone's brain with ALS. They're able to understand and comprehend. So yelling at someone, for example, because their speech is impeded is not an effective way to communicate with people. So I think it's for us. I hear that a lot from our community around that aspect of we don't understand because people make assumptions. So I think just generally, there's always an opportunity for people to do better. I think listening to people, to respect people's decisions, and that sometimes can get hard. I think for us, especially in the ALS community, our job is to respect everybody's decision. If people don't want an intervention because that's not something they see as something for their life that would give them quality of life, we have to respect that, and we have to honor that, and we have to value that person's opinion. They know what's best for them. So as long as we feel that we've given them all the information to make an informed decision on that, that's where our job stops. Our job is not about judging people in their decisions. It's about supporting whatever each individual's decision is and their right to autonomy.
Absolutely. And in doing so, as you've already mentioned, ALS is collaboratively working towards those solutions.
Yeah, I think as an organization, we really value people's feedback, and it's one of the reasons we engage the community as much as we do. And we do that because we are not here to make decisions for people. We are here to make decisions with people, and that is important in any organization.
Absolutely. And now, if our listeners are looking for those ways to collaborate, that extra information, those extra resources, and those amazing events and opportunities to take part in, how can they find out about them? How can they reach out to you?
I think our best avenue is to go to our website, which is als.ca. Also, all of our social channels, so our LinkedIn, our Facebook, our Instagram. Any of those, you can connect with us. There is always someone monitoring those avenues. But I also think that if you're asking community services questions, reach out to our team directly. It's communityservices@als.ca. We're happy to connect with individuals if they have questions, if they have follow-up, if they're just not sure where to turn. We're happy to provide them with those resources. And then if there is a way to collaborate and move projects forward, absolutely, as an organization, we are not siloed within our organization, and we don't want to be siloed with other organizations. It's important. Collaboration is the key to making things happen. We don't need to be on an island here. The best way of getting things done is if you have multiple people working on something to achieve the same outcome.
Absolutely. And with that, that's absolutely fantastic to know. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Davy, for your time. Thank you to Voices for Ability for having ALS Canada on. We're really grateful any opportunity we have to talk about our organization and the people we support.
And we are honestly tickled pink to have been able to listen and to be able to get to know you today. And with that, we've reached the end of yet another amazing interview. You're listening to Community Partners presented by Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. I'm your host, Davy Au. Be safe, be kind, and I'll see y'all next time.